Twitch made some crazy policy changes this week. On Tuesday, the Amazon-owned streaming platform announced new advertising guidelines for every single streamer on the platform. Now, logos need to be restricted to less than 3% of your screen. That's relatively this much. And broadcasters can't run burned-in ads in their content. That practically affects almost all of Twitch's top earners. On Wednesday, the company walked it back, but the controversy wasn't over for the platform, as their new updated partner agreement, which all Twitch partners will be forced to sign if they want to keep their status, legally restricts multi-streaming on other long-form video platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and Kick while live on Twitch.
I'm not allowed to multicast anymore to YouTube and Facebook while I'm streaming at Twitch at the same time, even if I'm not a partner. I'm not a partner, I'm not an affiliate, yet the rules apply to me as well.
I didn't take it seriously because, like, it's such a insane change that there is no way in hell that they would go through with this, because they would eradicate the one area that they actually dominate everywhere else on, okay, across the board. And that is live events.
I'm just so thrilled to be here with everyone again.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, we all know that Twitch has been going, the culture of Twitch has been declining for the last, what feels like the last 6-7 years. Whenever Amazon acquired them, I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? Amazon comes in and now they're looking at it and they're like, listen, we just need to make money, so let's figure it out. And then they just started basically gutting everything that Twitch meant, everything that Twitch was.
That's not gone over so well with a lot of streamers. So on this week's episode of Visionaries, we're joined by two very special guests. First, Devin Nash, the YouTuber and ad agency co-founder who's formerly the CEO of CLG, the well-known esports team. And second, Zachary Diaz, the chief strategy officer at OTK and the former director of emerging content at Twitch. Zach and Devin joined us on the show this week to talk about the controversial changes happening at Twitch and how it'll affect creators on the platform moving forward. So buckle in, this is a long one. Welcome to Visionaries, let's dive in. Guys, how are y'all doing?
We're well.
We're
well.
Both. It's been.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say.
I was just gonna talk about Diablo 4.
Yes, it's been a hectic 24 hours, and I think that is par for the course. Unfortunately, when these changes happen, and there isn't a lot of clarity or communication, and everyone is left to their own devices to fill the gaps. All of us made assumptions and judgments about what these changes were, and so it has been probably nonstop phone calls for me. I don't know about you, Devin, if you've had people reaching out being like, what does this mean? What should I do? But it has been nonstop questions of what is the future here?
No, I'm on the brand side, so no one cares. I mean, it's like if we spend our ad dollars with Twitch well, I mean, look, I moved our business away from Twitch. I saw the writing on the wall in 2021. Novo was doing 95% plus of our business in 2021 on Twitch, spending ad dollars there. And now that's less than 5%, but I'm 5x my revenue. So I've don't care. I understand the issue, but frankly, the writing's been on the wall for years. And so I just pivoted my business. I think you got to be agile, right?
Sure. Yeah. I think one thing I've written about, and I want to give this a little bit of context because I know we've got some people listening and co-streaming that this will be helpful for, is really what's changed at Twitch. And I know, Zach, last time you were on the show, you talked about that a little bit. And so we can kind of start there. Twitch was acquired by Amazon in 2014. And for the first few years of its time at Amazon, as someone who's reported on this, it was very hands-off. It was put into the department that at the time was ran by Andy Jassy, the now CEO of Amazon, who it was a part of the AWS, Amazon Web Services Group, and it was losing a lot of money, but because AWS was making so much money, it gave it a lot of cover fire to just be a loss leader, because AWS is one of the most profitable verticals of Amazon's entire business. Something that's happened over the past 2 years with an executive at Amazon named Jeff Blackburn leaving and then returning to Amazon. Jeff is a content person. He's been integral to the Amazon getting into the NFL and more into broadcast rights and into the movie studios, acquiring things like MGM as well and building up more of their studios. And they reorged Amazon a little bit more than a year ago, moving all of the content divisions into one silo for the first time. And that means that Twitch and Wondery and Audible and Amazon Prime Video and all of their various different content services are now under one group that is obviously very heavily scrutinized in a uncertain economic environment And that means that Twitch is now much more, I wrote about this, I think, in October. Twitch is much more closer to Amazon than it ever has been from a culture and an expectation perspective. Zach, can you speak a little bit on that and some of the ways that you've seen that too?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I joined Twitch probably back in 2015. Time is wonky after COVID times. And when I joined, it was its own independent culture, its own independent priorities and measurements and KPIs and performances and the ways that we did things. And that was pretty unique from an Amazon acquisitions perspective. We had heard stories of other companies being acquired by Amazon and being folded in immediately and not having your own benefits and not having your own processes and internal software and everything. And Twitch was kept pretty insulated from that. And that led to a lot of, flexibility. We were able to utilize Amazon resources and do what we thought was right at the time. But every year after that point, it would be cool. No, we are folding back into Amazon's way of doing things. And we are leading by, example in saying that we have to go reduce costs and increase revenue. And of course, that is the end goal is profitability. And when you had AWS providing that shield, providing that cover, I mean, in one context, it's a blessing in that, like, hey, you have this company that is Twitch, doesn't need to make a ton of profit, it can build what it wants to. But also there is a double-edged sword to that, which is that Amazon and AWS was so massive that Twitch in comparison was a footnote in a P&L. It was a minuscule part of the revenue. So how could somebody at the top level of Amazon who's thinking about billions and billions of dollars worth of product moving across the physical logistics side of e-commerce or the hundreds of billions of dollars in AWS sales, what is a couple $billion in this gaming space? It wasn't really a focus for them. And I think we have seen the result of that, which is that Twitch wasn't prioritized. Its lead wasn't really taken advantage of. What it could have been to the space for gaming and influencers and content and live as a leader and innovator, where was that advantage pressed with Amazon's resources, as opposed to, cool, we have this thing and we're going to cannibalize it, turn it into a white label service with IVS. That is
that's the real answer. It was pressed into IVS.
Yeah.
Right?
And so it became a part of the Amazon infrastructure. And that's, there are multiple stories there to be said of what does that mean for the success of Twitch if all they're really using it for is the technology? What does that mean?
Yeah, I want to give a little bit of context of what these two guys just mentioned, which is IVS, which is the video service that Twitch functionally built. Functionally, what made Twitch so valuable as a company is that the early team at Twitch, people like Jonathan Shipman and Mike Osseray and others, discovered how to create live video that was, while costly, more cost efficient than previous and very technologically savvy as well. And it made Twitch extremely valuable. It catapulted it as a live streaming provider. There weren't many competitors back when it first launched in 2011 as Twitch, and before that as Justin TV in 2008. And they were able to do that at such a scale that made it attractive for a bunch of different companies that were in the race to acquire Twitch at the time. Google, Yahoo, Disney, and eventually Amazon, its real buyer. Ultimately, though, part of what has happened now is it is so costly and Twitch is so mainstream that, and we saw this in right before Zach was here last time, there was a letter from from Dan Clancy, now the CEO of Twitch, but at the time the president of Twitch, who was essentially talking about how much it costs them to run live video for small streamers, that people that have a very small audience, if any audience at all, people who are streaming to 1, 2, 3 people concurrent, right? They're still having to pay a ton of money for that delivery of live video and the upload of that live video, even if they're not grossing revenue off of those people. So yes, you may see people like XQC and Kaisanat and Asmongold and others who are these top revenue drivers and probably make Twitch a decent amount of money, but it's also so lopsided because there are so many people that just stream on Twitch as a hobby, and this is not a career for them at all. The IVS part of this, the technology, has been white labeled and used by Amazon. Actually, funnily enough, but also sad, Amazon is charging Twitch to use the service that they built. It's a part of Twitch's P&L, is that they have to pay for the service that they built that is now Amazon owned, which there's a whole other conversation that we had on that last episode about that. And also, they're reselling IVS as part of the AWS service bundle, to the part I've seen it on like mega churches using it to broadcast church services, musicians using it to broadcast, concerts, etc., live concerts. It's a very popular white label service, and it's functionally the same as Twitch. And so, yeah, give that a little bit of context. But Devin, I want to circle back. You said that you've seen the writing on the wall. Can you elaborate on that? What you mean, the writing on the wall of Twitch? Why have you moved away from Twitch in a lot of your business, like you said earlier?
Well, the essential reason is not exciting. I mean, I've moved because our brand dollars don't make sense to spend there. So ultimately, even if I'm agnostic, right? I'm a marketer. So I care about where our money goes and the engagement we get, the return on advertising spend or ROAS we get, the ROI. If I advertise on Twitch, I don't get good returns because either I have extremely overpriced or unmotivated influencers, or notably, predatory agencies taking 30 to 50% of cuts on things. And I just why should I spend money there rather than YouTube? And I guess like the perspective I'm bringing, I should contextualize. Like, I don't run a TA, right? So I don't have any creators. I don't have anything like that. I run a brand agency. I work directly with brands. So I'm speaking directly to the people who are I'm controlling the budgets of people who are spending money to run ad dollars. I'm the person that does that. And so I guess that has removed me a lot from the Twitch ecosystem, in the sense that like when I was a streamer on Twitch, and for the 3 or 4 years ago, I really thought this was all there was, in the sense that like Twitch as a platform really felt like the beating heart of the new media industry. And now that I actually am on the brand side, and I really do see how these dollars are being allocated, and more importantly, how that performance is occurring, I realize that the Twitch is not even on the radar of the vast majority of brands. Like most of them feel like they've been burned pretty bad by spending ad dollars on Twitch and getting poor results because their ads get distributed across tons of streams with no targeting. And like they're just tired of it. So it's not like we had this feeling on Twitch, right? That Twitch was this place where brands just weren't aware of it yet, but once they would get there, they would spend money, it would be amazing, and like the results would be incredible, and that live streaming aspect of being able to talk back and forth with your audience was going to result in conversions and impressions that we'd never seen before. But now that's played out. Twitch has been around for a decade. We know that we can get those better results on YouTube. We can get better results on Instagram. So that's a boring answer. I guess the answer is more exciting to other people, is more over so that like Twitch has consistently made decisions that are so just obviously not in favor of creators for a lot of the reasons that you two just brought up. And because they can't, right? Like most of the people that were at Twitch that were able to make visionary decisions, people like Kevin Lin, former COO that like mentored me, or John, who formerly ran partnerships, or Shipman, who you brought up, who built the infrastructure along with Marty. Those people they cashed out. They're like, not to their fault, right? But they got their Amazon RSUs after 2 to 4 years. They pieced out. This crew that has replaced them has profitability KPIs from Andy Jassy, which are extremely aggressive. And so they're basically saying, you need to make money or we will shut down Twitch. We don't care, because we've extracted IVS, which I think, by the way, like it was the proper play for Amazon to do. I think for them to like focus on IVS and be like, okay, this is where the real money is, makes sense to me. And they are now saying like, look, hey, you've got like a ghost skeleton crew trying to desperately make Twitch profitable. And the end result is every change we've seen for the past 3 years from Twitch has been monetization changes and not favored creators, because they really are just in a position where they can't do that. Right. And so outside of a visionary CEO coming in and saying, we're going to cut like 60, 70% of the staff, and then we're going to convince Amazon somehow to take a further loss on Twitch and get favorable sub splits and stuff like that, until we can prove to people that this is a creator first platform, the site's doomed. You
were saying that you hadn't seen as many good ad conversions for advertisers. I'm curious if that is specific to running the pre-roll and mid-roll ads that are just placed by the Twitch service that when you press them, or if you're talking about creator endorsements, or both.
Across the board, unfortunately. So I can address both. So you understand that the ads that you see on Twitch that are served by Twitch, so whenever the ads that everybody complains about, when you see like 6 to 10 ads pop up for a stream or whatever, that's a brand going directly to the Twitch sales team and them white gloving that for a high minimum, right? So you're paying a lot of money to get through the door on that. Zach's nodding his head. We all know we know that number, but we can't tell what that number is. It's a very high number. Those ads are typically not converting very well. When I say conversion, I mean it's resulting in a good impression. It's resulting in good engagement. It's resulting in like favorable brand presence. That's not happening because those are not targeted ads. So on Google, I can pay $100,000, throw it at AdSense, and then they're gonna like, I need to target people's dogs that have pink colors only, that are between the ages of like Google will get it, right? They're amazing. And Facebook's even scarier than that. And TikTok's even scarier than that. So like I can target so specifically on my ads, but like on Twitch, like I might get Forsen, I might get Lyric, I might get, I don't know, right? So those ads are so general. They've done like very little targeting that we don't see good results on that. And then as far as influencer activations go, this is something that really changed for me when we actually started spending, where I formerly thought that the sort of like live streaming aspect of like the calls to action, where if I'm on a live stream and I say, guys, go to this website right now, buy this thing, it's freaking amazing. I formerly thought that was a very aggressive way to do marketing. It was really effective, but we've just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars now, millions of dollars now. And we know like unequivocally that if a call to action on a pre-recorded YouTube video outperforms Twitch by 200%, like straight up. Yeah. So, and it blew my mind because I spent years thinking the opposite. It doesn't make sense intuitively because you're thinking what ends up happening though is that live audience of whatever that concurrent viewership is at that time, they churn into that and they go to it. And so you see that initial boost and like, it'll crash a website. You'll be like, oh my God, the engagement's incredible. But what's actually happening is that the totality of that viewership that knows, likes, and trusts a person on a VOD, right, is going to convert over that time of that video way better. And then whereas like that Twitch flash in the pan, people go and most of them don't care.
That's super interesting, I think, because, you know, you think like generally endorsement, Twitch feels more personal than probably any other platform of media currently, because you're able to talk back, you're able to engage. You know, my perspective has always been that Twitch is probably the most personal, podcasts are probably the second, less because of the format, more because of the time that you're spending, right? It's during your personal time, you're unwinding, you're commuting, right? That is the time you hold sacred. A lot of people hold sacred to them, right? From a you know, sort of daily routine perspective. And YouTube kind of feels in a lot of ways unpersonal, at least to me now. And so I'm intrigued that it's converting better, and that's like the data that you've seen.
You would think so, but there is literally no single reason to spend brand dollars on non-gaming brand dollars, I should say, on Twitch that isn't on YouTube. YouTube engages better. The audiences know, like, and trust on average the influencers much more. They convert higher. It's all there. Like, I mean, we just have so much data on this. Yeah,
I think it's actually really interesting to think about this in the perspective of to at least bring it back to like these ad changes and what we like this
absolutely
is about. The way that I've conceptualized this in my own head is that like one of the reasons why YouTube and AdSense and like the entire Google advertising ecosystem is so powerful is because they created the online advertising industry, really, or they revolutionized it, right? They didn't create it, but they were able to go to they were able to like build the technology that could actually serve those ads in a very highly targeted way that you were just talking about, Devin. But they also had to go to the advertisers and say, hey, you have spent your dollars traditionally on TV and radio and in these like, you know, certain industries or in these certain media. We can do better. We can perform better, faster, like cheaper, more efficient, whatever it might be. Where has Twitch done that?
Well, like, real quick,
go ahead.
That's a super important point because that loops us back, like to your point, right? That this is why this change happened.
Yes.
Right. Everything that we just said, Twitch has to encourage brands to work directly with Twitch.
Right.
In order to do that, to your point, Zach, right? They have to demonstrate to sponsors and advertisers that they have the tools to do that.
Yeah.
That underline other content creators do not have. So like
exactly.
So it's like we have to disable burn-ins, right? Yeah. Yeah. So
it just raises this question, which is. You know, from the start, I think a lot of people who understand Twitch and live streaming, like one of the biggest conflicts is that like mid-roll advertisements or pre-roll advertisements are in a direct conflict with the nature of the content of live content, right? If I am watching a live stream, the last thing that I want is in the middle of a really intense, you know, epic moment in an esports match or in a narrative story of like a Dungeons and Dragons event or anything like that, like out of my control, an ad plays and I miss that content. So a mid-roll is just fundamentally opposed to that. Whereas on a VOD platform, whether it's long form or short form, it's naturally cohesive to like, cool, it interrupts the content, but I can go back to exactly where I was and didn't miss anything.
That's a fair point.
So where has anybody come up and said, how do we lean into what is a really engaged audience that wants to be involved, have agency, have, you know, this temporal activity that you can't recreate anywhere else? What's an advertising format that would really lean into that? But instead of it, we're just like leaning back and saying, cool, we're going to follow the leads of the industry. We're going to like not innovate. We're not going to push this forward. And we're going to force our audience and our creators into a paradigm that wasn't created for it. And it's unfortunate. I'm not saying that I have the answer to that, but we are basically trying to make, what is it, you know, a round peg fit into a square hole, or square peg fit into a round hole. It's like, it doesn't make sense.
It's funny because OTK, like your organization, started to solve that problem by doing ads, and basically like you are creating these amazing events that I think are revolutionizing. I made a video almost a year ago, and I said the future of Twitch, if there is one, is going to be live events. And OTK comes in and starts making loot goblins, starts making like parasocial. You guys are killing it on events, and they go, well, how do we monetize this? Well, we've got to get sponsors to run ads directly against this. You start doing that. And now it's starting to make sense to make these events on Twitch. And then Twitch turns around and make no mistake, a lot of people think this is targeted towards like mid-sized streamers or like this change, these brand guys. No, it's targeted towards events, 100%, right? And major productions.
100%.
They are trying to capture your advertisers and say, okay, and now OTK has figured out how to monetize the events. We're getting 0% of that cut. We want a piece. Now you got to go through us.
I want to clarify that that's actually not a new rule. It is the a little bit of context for the people that are listening on audio in particular, given, you know, not as actively engaged in the news, is one of the biggest things, and credit to Zach Bussey for so like well laying this out as he usually does and showing like what the policy changes are visually. One of the biggest things that Twitch is doing in this policy change, granted, you know, we don't really know what they're doing because they are now walking it back after getting a huge slap on the hand from the community yesterday, is that they announced that they are no longer allowing burned in video ads. And to contextualize that for people that don't speak advertising speak, but more or less burned in means that you are running it in the broadcasting software that you are using. So if you are streaming using OBS or any of the other, you know, vMix or any of the other live streaming platforms, you are live streaming softwares, you are playing a video ad somewhere during that broadcast and changing the content that is being fed to Twitch. And I will tell you, because I had a conversation with someone at Twitch 18 months ago about this, that has been long guidance that you are not allowed to do that. What changed yesterday was that they publicly announced that you are no longer allowed to do that, right? And previously they didn't enforce it a lot. And a lot of content creator organizations, OTK included, but also Riot Games and Activision Blizzard and ESL and other places, have basically shoved their middle finger to Twitch. They are partners on the platform. Granted, many of them don't take subscribers on the platform, so their structure is a little different. But a lot of these places have told Twitch to fuck off and that they're going to do it. And they've dared Twitch to discipline them.
There's some super important context there, Jacob, because in 2015, when ESL and all these companies were just getting started running esports, Twitch tried to do this to them. They went to them and they said, okay, if you guys are going to advertise these media rights deals where we're going to pay you to be on our platform, if you want to do this, we're going to represent you as AOR. Meaning we are going to be the people that, we're going to be the people that manage your ad deals for you, right? So, and that's why Riot was like, yeah, good luck, buddy. Like, you need our viewership more than we need you. So if you want to do that, we'll go to YouTube or do whatever. And those agencies capitulated to that, but a lot of other agencies like ESL for a long time were like Twitch exclusive.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to the point you just brought up, I think the mindset, and this goes back to the leadership change because that's what ultimately is making so many of these decisions. The mindset, I think, at Twitch has changed. And I always look at I think what you just said is true previously, that Twitch needs Riot Games and ESL, et cetera, more than they need them. They'll find another platform. That previously, I think that was previously felt to be true. I think people like Kevin Lynn and Immature and others that like were a part of the early team that ran the company post Amazon acquisition felt that to be true. I think what has changed in the past, and I'm sure, you know, there's some Amazon executives that know this, is when Ninja and Shroud left the platform for Mixer, and I will come back to Mixer in a little bit, the audience, a lot of them stayed on Twitch. They literally refused to type a different URL in the URL bar, the most lazy of consumer. they just found something else to watch. And that was Dr. Disrespect for a while. Then he's gone and it becomes XUC, Ludwig, others, right? Like this audience uses Twitch almost like a TV guide. And they are able to just flip and find something new because there's so much content that is interesting to them. And I think that has changed the perspective of the Twitch and Amazon executive teams about, well, we don't need anyone. We are a technology company that clearly has like people in almost like Apple in a walled garden. And so it doesn't fucking matter. You can bounce off our platform if you're angry about this. Our community, our platform will build someone else up into a big streamer.
I think that's, ultimately a very a accurate optics interpretation of how leadership has viewed the Twitch ecosystem, which is realistically, do they view it as a product of, or as a technology product that it is like, cool, we just build these intricate services and, this excellent, and credit to the engineers, the people who actually built the Twitch, video infrastructure and all of the products there. But it's like, do we view it as that? Or is there actually something special about the culture and the community and the streamers that Twitch grew from, built into the ecosystems, esports, speed running, all of these things that made Twitch what it was at the start? And I think the answer is really easily said, that it's like, it's not one or the other. It's the awesome mix of both of those. But ignoring the fact that Twitch doesn't have this sustained ecosystem of, if individual creators stopped broadcasting tomorrow, why would anyone watch Twitch? If individual creators stopped uploading to YouTube tomorrow, there are still hundreds of thousands of companies and agencies and press and people that will use YouTube as a distribution model for their content. It might not be the regular vlogs and, commentary on sports or whatever that you expect, but there will still be content available. So people will tend towards going towards YouTube. And Twitch has this mentality that any single creator is replaceable, when I think any of us would know that is a farce. There is no chance that you can upset each of these creators. And we are already seeing creators leave every day, mostly via non-exclusive agreements to go to other platforms, but they're finding those replacements. And that ethos of saying Twitch is just a technology vector for serving ads to hundreds of millions of audience members ignores the fact that there is something so important about the way that a live audience is treated, the way that a live community or a community is cultivated, and there's a stewardship there, and there is a responsibility. And it seems like there's just a disconnect. Who's actually having that conversation? Where is that dialogue being played out? It seems like it's not even a cohesive dialogue for anyone who's at the forefront of it, let alone, trying to make their living day to day.
It's a scaling problem, right? Because they don't realize that XQC, for example, is 2 or 3% of Twitch's total viewership on the website at any given time, right? So you really, to your point, you really can't lose those content creators. It's a huge blow to the website whenever that happens. But because they see it like this technology play, and I think part of that is just the sort of, Zach, you're an OG at Twitch, and you really came in when the culture was so strong. And that sort of bleed purple feeling that we all had in 2012, 2015, where I truly was in love with Twitch. And Jacob, you brought up where you were hey, people would physically not go to another website like Mixer. Part of that was because we loved Twitch. We just really truly believed in the platform. During Twitch's expansion and Amazon's acquisition of the company, at some point Twitch was hiring 50 to 100 people a week. And a lot of those people were SF tech bros and broettes, right? That were really interested more in the technology play. And so, vis-a-vis, you go a few years ahead of that, and no one really understands what the original thing was about.
Right. I do want to ask a follow-up on something Zach said, is that these content creators are needed. And I'm curious, I think I know the answer, but I want your answer on this, Zach. If this is such a problem, obviously, for context to listeners, Zach's organization, OTK, announced that they would be potentially leaving the platform unless Twitch turned about face and went back on these changes, and that they'd be looking at other opportunities. But if there was an amount of solidarity between all of the top streamers, I think a lot of this, would be collectively bargained and fixed. And I want to ask the both of you, but we'll start with you, Zach. Why do you think streamers aren't collectively trying to bargain against Twitch as a group?
It's such a fascinating question because I think especially as a moment in time, we are seeing probably one of the largest like labor solidarity movements across the US, particularly in entertainment, even if we specifically focus on our industry, where I think SAG just voted to authorize a strike. You have WGA, which has been on strike for a while. The entertainment TV, movie production ecosystem is standing with each other, and there's an entire movement of that. One of the things that I think is so prevalent in the live streaming space, maybe it's all content, I can't speak to like YouTube and other platforms, but particularly in live streaming spaces, is everyone views it as a zero-sum game. And so somebody else's gain of audience, of presence, of monetization on the platform is my loss. And I don't think that's true. If somebody else gets more popular on Twitch, it does not mean that I become less popular, but that's how people view it. So the reality is that these creators feel like they are competitors to each other, as opposed to saying the pie of people watching Twitch is this big and it can grow massively if everybody even stayed the same share of what viewership they had, but took 10% away from, YouTube, or 10% away from Netflix, or 10% away from whatever other entertainment platform had their attention at that moment. But as opposed to it, it's crabs pulling each other down out of a bucket. And I think there's a really interesting comparison in esports, which just happened with the LCS Players Association and Double Lift going out there and being like, if it comes to it, I'm gonna play.
I'll scab. Yeah.
I cannot believe, even if you don't believe in it, there should be a certain amount of solidarity with your fellow workers to say that, like, what is the power imbalance here between us as individual streamers? What individual streamer can make a choice for Twitch versus Twitch owned by Amazon, one of the largest corporations?
Devin, any thoughts?
My answer is not going to be as good as Zach's, because I think that's completely right. I'll say that I think it's two things, and I guess I'll kind of give like a little bit of a hotter take here. I think that streamers just benefit too much from staying on the platform, and it's a simple numbers game. The reality is that a lot of these larger creators are making tens of thousands of dollars in advertising revenue, which has gone up, right, for individual creators on Twitch, and also they're just pulling in tons of money on Prime. They're like pulling tons of money in on subs that, unless they're going to get a paid deal to move off platform, it's just going to be a content play. They're going to play to the audience to say, like, this is terrible, we'll walk. But no one really truly will when the cards are down, unless it actually becomes financially viable and stability viable wise to like be on a platform like YouTube or Kick. I think that's number one. And I think number two is that streamers are just notoriously pretty lazy. They fight like cats and dogs. To Zach's point about the crabs in the bucket is super accurate, but I just don't think there's like a unifying voice that really wants to take up the sword and go and spend the time that it's going to take to do this. There have been broadcasters that have decided to do it individually, like notably like Co Carnage, who like joined the Twitch ambassador or what, the council or whatever. Like they're trying to make the changes in their way. But there isn't, you really need, like, if you look at like a lot of these like unionization efforts and like movements, it kind of comes down to like a very few people that really are galvanizing people to do it, and we just don't have that kind of person that's gonna do that. I think to a lot of the points that Zach mentioned. Yeah.
Ironically, I think one of them's already left Twitch, and that'd be Ludwig Ogren, friend of the show.
Yeah,
one of the few people that is very minded like that and has already spoken on this issue. Not even on Twitch. It's it doesn't even matter to him.
Yeah, Twitch pushed a lot of those people out because those, and so the thing is, a lot of those creators like Ludwig are motivated by creating events, right? And so Ludwig, it was just a simple numbers game of saying, well, I can make events better on YouTube with more support.
Well, and don't give me a bigger flat payment check. He's not going to have to like stream crazy amount of hours to be able to earn revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, this goes back again to that other episode with Cecilia and Zach where we talked about the rev split change. And, overall, like that's, I think a lot of creators, these other platforms, just like Mixer in the past, are offering flat sums, guaranteed flat sums that allow people like Ludwig and some of the OTV people that are moving over to YouTube also the ability to either one, secure their living. There was a very famous, I think, beginning of last year, 2022, Courage quote about this, about like, even though he had lost a little bit of audience, he didn't care because YouTube is guaranteeing him a future.
That's
right.
Whereas a huge worry for a live creator. Absolutely. It's like the volatility in what is your advertising revenue, what is your subscription revenue, all of that. And if it can be offset by a guarantee from the platform, that's a huge amount of worry from a day-to-day creator, even if they're already making what most people would consider great, incomes. It's still pressure.
It's also that, like, if you look at someone like Asmongold, let's take like a typically person we think is Twitch focused in personality, right? Asmon himself will tell you that the amount of real views and monetization that he's getting via Twitch is pales in comparison to his YouTube presence, which is something like 20 million views a day. It's like some insane number, right? So ultimately, like, if Zachary has to put his foot down, sorry, others, if Asmon has to really, if Asmon really has to put his, if Asmon has to put his foot down, right, it's like, I don't care. Like, I've got tons of views going in on YouTube. Like, I've properly diversified. I've made those plays. And so many of these creators are like, don't no longer view this as existential. That's another reason, I think, another motivation as to why to like not galvanize, right? Is like, ultimately, if Asmongold decides to leave the platform, it'll suck for him, because I think he genuinely loves engaging with his audience and being on Twitch in that way, but it's not the end of the world for him. He'll find a way to succeed.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the alternate platforms and y'all's thoughts on them that are popping up right now. We have seen Kick launch, which ironically pays Amazon for its IVS service. So it's Twitch with a different face, basically, technologically very similar to Twitch. Kick is backed by Stake, a gambling company, crypto gambling company, not super well regulated either, and I think a lot of people are concerned about that. Another Rumble. Rumble is, I think, trying to turn itself away from its past, but Rumble is historically a right-wing, free speech, absolutism type social media platform that has a video live streaming component of it. We saw them recently do a deal with Kaisenat and iShowSpeed, who is one of the biggest YouTubers in the gaming adjacent space, for a show over there on Rumble. YouTube is still in the game. Granted, I don't think YouTube is going to be aggressive as much in its signings anymore as it once was with the current macroeconomic environment. I'm sure they'll do some deals, but I've heard, some cut spending over there at YouTube and Google as well on the live creator space. I think they're pretty content with some of the people that they've got, people like Ludwig and others who are driving pretty significant traffic for them and pretty significant engagement. And then there are a few smaller others, but I think that's like really the kind of the four people in the pool, Twitch and those three. What are your thoughts, Zach and Devin, on Rumble, Kick, and YouTube, and looking at alternates or creators if things go sideways with Twitch?
I think this is actually a really fascinating question, and I have my own thoughts, and like, especially in a personal context, how I feel about them. But they're all vastly uninformed from Devin's perspective, which is, I think that there is a huge question of not just what do the creators feel or think and feel about these platforms? What do their communities think and feel about these platforms? What are the brands? What are the partner, like the sponsors? What do they feel about it? Because where the money flows will eventually help us understand that perspective. And I don't know, if you approach anyone who understood YouTube, maybe understood Twitch, do they know about any of these other platforms? I'm so curious.
Okay, I spent every day with this. Yes, I'm so in.
Teed up. There you go.
Yeah. I'll go down the list, right? Starting with Kick. It can never be taken seriously unless it has some rules. Okay, it's impossible. We tried. It's impossible to advertise there. Not only physically, like they just don't have a program. There's just not a person to talk to, right? Like, we're like, we want to spend money on Kick. How do we do it? And they're like, oh, yes, streamers. Great. We'll get back to you. Thumbs up. And I'm like, what? Like, but more than that, right? You've got demagogues and warlords on that platform, like getting people on webcam to fight in gladiatorial arenas and put up like symbolism from. It's crazy. Like what's going on that platform is untenable for brands. I can't even we run at Novo. We run some pretty crazy brands where like. My co-founder Matt has a system where he asks brands. He goes, if we were to advertise in a movie theater, what rating would you have? Would it be R? Would it be PG-13? Right? And so like we have some definitely X-rated brands. I can't put them on Kick. I just can't. Like it just Kick is so insane, right? We cannot spend a single dollar of advertising there until those guys actually like they'd have to. I'll just say it outright. they've got to ban outright some of the streamers that Twitch had already made the decision to ban, that are permabanned on Twitch for a reason. As much as we give shit to Twitch for some of their inconsistent ban policies, a lot of the people that are permanently off that website are off there for a very damn good reason, which Zach knows. Yeah. So I just think that until those people, until Kick is willing to like really pull the trigger on some of that, advertising there is impossible. We'll never see any brand dollars on Kick. That Rumble, similar deal. The specter of their history is scary, but we have talked to Rumble and we're pretty impressed with their creator momentum. We've done a couple of deals there, so I would say Rumble is a potential, but we'll just never match the first mover advantage that Twitch has. The brand dollars there will be a fraction of what we ever spend on any kind of live streaming. As for YouTube, the main thing that holds us back on YouTube from spending more brand dollars there is data. The live streaming just doesn't report as well, as Twitch does. I've been speaking to a lot of the people at YouTube to try to improve this, but brands need to have results for their advertising dollars, right? So they need to understand like how are we doing on our impressions, how are we doing on our engagement, things like that. And we just don't have that data at YouTube. Like a lot of time, you just don't even know like who these people are. The really impressive YouTube analytics that you have on VOD, which is second to none for content creators on YouTube, don't exist for live streaming. And Ludwig even like had to like talk to YouTube to even get like an idea of like what his past stream performance was in terms of like concurrent viewership. He just had no idea. But if YouTube solves that problem, they are the clear winner for brand dollars. Their content guidelines and their brand guidelines are already so ironclad that we would have absolutely no problem spending there. I've actually like literally asked the YouTube live team, we have money ready to spend like today. I'd put money in today to YouTube if we could. But their live streaming data is just not adept enough. So I think YouTube is the clear winner here. But Kick and Rumble like aren't even on our radar. I'm literally super willing to spend money on Kick tomorrow, but like, you know, like Band-Aid and Ross, like that kind of stuff like has to happen before we can even do it.
Well, it's so conflicting. I think one of the biggest things that Twitch has dealt with historically, I mean, moderation has always been a difficult part of Twitch as a business, you know, like even back when it was Justin TV before the rebrand and spinning it off and, you know, focusing it on gaming, you know, they were like well known for piracy. They got sued by the UFC for having UFC pay-per-views basically be streamed on Justin TV and Twitch for free by a bunch of different people. A very famous lawsuit that's fun to go read if you have public access or you know how to pull those documents. It's pretty funny. But, you know, overall, I think Twitch has struggled a lot with moderation. And I think a lot of people thought, and I am taking this somewhere, a lot of people thought that moderation would be what would kill Twitch. The fact that they exactly what Devin said, they are known to use the ban hammer quite liberously. And yes, there are some real instances of that.
Can I unpack that?
Yeah. There are some that are worth it, but there are some that are just so opaque that you just don't even really understand why someone got the ban hammer, and they don't really explain it very well either. And I don't think that to be the case. But Devin, you were going to say about Twitch moderation?
I remember talking to Zach at like a TwitchCon or a PAX and not understanding this concept where like we were talking about like dude, I think I deliberately even asked you like, why was this dude banned? Right. And you gave me a really good answer. And I didn't understand this from Twitch's perspective, and Zach, I'd love to like for you to impact this from like the partnership perspective after this. But I'll say from the brand perspective that I used to think that Twitch's ban policy was really aggressive, and now that I actually talk to the brands, like the amount that brands care about brand safety is so much. Like we have this like idea, especially like some of the people from like Kick will say this a lot, where they're like, brands are waking up. They're seeing that like people that are real talkers are the ones that get the that is completely fucking untrue. Like brands are more scared than ever. We're super polarized as a nation in the US, which is the primary theater for a lot of advertising, and brands are talking to us every day. Like that influencer is like way too hot. We don't want that. Like this is way too scary. Like brands are terrified of like the next Twitter cancellation, like the Budweiser type shit, where like all of a sudden you just lose 70% sales overnight, and you're like, what the happened, right? And like that is like our primary objective as an agency, is to protect brands from that kind of stuff. I think that like you just are not going to see that kind of content policy be updated, and Twitch is like 100% right to do that. But I'd love to get Zach's view from the, because he has a unique view of this from a partnership perspective.
Yeah, I think this is such a complicated and sort of nuanced topic that everyone has their own rose-colored glasses, or whatever you want to say, purple-colored glasses, that you have to view this through a lens, which is, are you representing an audience member who just saw your favorite streamer get banned and you don't understand why? Are you a content creator who's terrified that one misspoken word out of your mouth could be the end of your career because some contractor moderation person misheard you or misread what you had typed or anything like that and bans you and you never get to make money off your stream again? Are you a brand who says, every single time I advertise on this platform, I get 100 angry emails from parents and people saying, how could you put your product next to this streamer or something like that? And the problem is that everyone is advocating for their own perspective, for their own way to push it forward. Realistically, I think that there is a huge aversion towards people in this space taking ownership and responsibility for the fact that when you have a chance to be an independent agent of controlling your own content, who you are speaking with, who you bring onto your platform, everything like that, you have a responsibility. And that is really important to brands. They want to know that if they are putting their logo, their trademark, their word mark, whatever it is, on your stream, on your content, next to your face, that they can be trusted, that their values are also being implicitly portrayed in that. And one of the things that I think is so tough is, for the past decade, Twitch has been fighting an uphill battle in the gaming space alone. And it is so hard for streamers who can just get on stream and stream to 10, 100, 10,000, 100,000 people, whatever. And they can make money from doing that when they have to turn around and look at a brand. They're like, who cares if I say an expletive here, or if I, make an off-color joke there, or do this thing. And you're like, because that brand has a choice to spend that money where they would never have an issue. They could go to some other platform, some other influencer, some other agency, and not have that problem. What would you do if you were the one person responsible for moderating those the services? If you were responsible for spending those dollars, would you want to deal with that headache? The one thing that I think is really difficult is the scale of these platforms. And this is a truth, not just on Twitch, but on every platform. You don't see the hundreds of thousands of hours of work that go into actually keeping the platform safe. I can say this from having worked at Twitch, having worked at TikTok, known people on the trust and safety teams, all of that. You only hear about the moderation decisions that either don't happen fast enough, are incorrect. I would say that at least if I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, 95% of the choices are made super fast, super well, super correct. It's just we hear about the ones that aren't. And of course, we should take that extremely seriously. But we hear about the ones where it's like, my favorite streamer got banned because they said, this, or they did this on stream, and I don't think it's fair, is a very different conversation than we have actual, white supremacists on our platform and my logo is coming up next to theirs. What are we doing here?
I do want to give a little bit of recognition to Twitch on that, and how good that they've gotten at recognizing certain things very quickly. One of the anecdotes that people may not be familiar with, but I remember reading about this pretty explicitly, was when the Buffalo shooting happened in last year, that the Buffalo shooter was undetected by Discord. He was in a Discord by himself and basically writing his manifesto and a white supremacy manifesto, etc., on Discord in a private server to himself, and nothing happened. He went completely unmoderated until after the shooting had happened. On Twitch, he live streamed the shooting inspired by Christchurch, which was live streamed on Facebook. And the moment he showed a gun on the stream, he was taken down. It was extremely quick. Twitch Automod has gotten very good at recognizing content, video content, and making a very quick result of getting someone off platform. And so I do think, Twitch moderation, like I think Zach said, we hear a lot about the things that people view as unfair, but there's many instances of playing whack-a-mole, and Twitch got pretty good at playing whack-a-mole, I think, in a lot of different ways.
They might be the best at it, certainly from a live streaming perspective, right? Facebook has made a lot of those mistakes as well, and been unable to prevent some of those really unfortunate things from happening. like live, right? But Twitch is perhaps the best at solving that problem. There's a really hard problem to solve, to Zach's point, really, really hard, because you're thinking about like there's an automatic layer, and then you're thinking about like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of human moderation to evaluate like what's happening in real time. It's so hard.
One thing we didn't touch on, and I want to make sure we do before we dive into audience questions, is probably the biggest thing, at least for me, because again, we said that the burned-in video ads, that there had been advisory from Twitch not to do that, and that many people did not care, and just again called the bluff and said, enforce us or else. And Twitch has not enforced a lot, taken down Riot and others who do run those kind of ads. One of the things from the brand content guidelines that were released yesterday is the logo percentage. And this is probably the most controversial of things, because this is, especially for live events, a logo scroll, right? An animated scroll that is showing different brand logos is so important. It is a big part of why Twitch advertising is valuable. It's a big part of television too, or any live event. This is not new to live on Twitch. This happens on TV, etc. as well. And Twitch is restricting on-stream logos to 3% of a 16:9 resolution size, which is extremely tiny. I saw a lot of memes about how small this is. Much smaller than many of the esports events that are successful Twitch, much more than a lot of the mainstream streamers that have, overlays and are running those types of cycles. What do you guys think they're doing this? What do you, if you had to speculate, what's the motivation on that one? The others I kind of understand. This one I don't quite get.
So I think it's a complete misunderstanding on behalf of like everybody I actually have like a really different take on this. First of all, I'm trying to find the image. Somebody showed exactly what 3% is. It's actually like pretty reasonable. 3% is like fine for 1080p, and people say, wait, what? But there's a huge difference between the wording here. So on the branded guidelines, it says logos. It says the rule for logos is 3%, but then it says below that overlays. So Twitch just didn't communicate what they meant. If it's overlays, now we have a really different conversation. Overlays can be like an entire, but my understanding was they were really targeting logos, which to me is fine. And also it makes sense from the perspective of Twitch that they would be targeting logos, because those are people. Again, Twitch needs to find inventory that they can sell that you as an event creator or content creator cannot do yourself. So by them saying, you are limited logo wise to like, let's say 3%, but we can tell brands you could get 10% of the space or whatever, right? That gives them a competitive advantage in the marketplace and sales. And so I think that's the motivation, but I think somebody just outright screwed up. I think they just they don't know if it's logos or overlays, because if it's overlays, like in that case, like that's just dumb, but I don't think they ever intended that. It seems like the title of the actual branded content slide was logos. It's probably what they intended. They probably didn't intend to do overlays. That's my take.
I really appreciate that context. I think, speaking to what I had mentioned at the beginning, which is just that the chaos of this communication, the rollout, the change is one of those things where I think most people find it frustrating. And this historically has happened time and time again with Twitch. It happens a lot with other platforms, but where a change gets made, and because there is a loss of trust between Twitch and everybody else who is a partner of their platform, and supposedly a partner is somebody that you treat as an equal or at least communicate with, there's a loss of trust. And they say, well, would I give them the benefit of the doubt? Should I give them the grace of this choice being, this choice or the worst possible scenario? What are we supposed to believe? We don't have enough information. We have seen Twitch make changes to our revenue shares in the past, towards our, content guidelines, towards, where we can stream, what we can stream, things like that. What am I supposed to assume? So, Twitch's rollback earlier today or yesterday was to say, oh, we used some language, we missed the mark, and we want to, clarify, and we're going to release an update there. I think there's a very big difference between we need to clarify the language of like, what is specifically a banner, what's a lower third, what's an overlay ad, and what is the actual intent here? If I play out the scenario 5 years from now, how much is Twitch taking from my, like the brands and sponsors that I bring onto my stream? That's the real question, is because of course there's going to be a gray area and Twitch has to, flesh this out. What does it actually look like? Is somebody going to be on my screen measuring with a ruler what is 3% here? Or is it going to be an AI thing? We've seen AI is not exactly great at creating hands and fingers, let alone distinguishing what's a overlay or not. And I think that there's just a lack of trust. So the communication, did anyone at Twitch reach out to Twitch creators and say, hey, we're going to make these changes. Does this number sound right? Does this seem clear enough to you? How would it impact your business? Was that question ever asked to somebody who does this?
I do think, and I think maybe I said this last time you were here, Zach, is like one of the biggest places that's been cut and hit by Twitch over the years is the partnership team. The team that is actively engaged with the creators and hearing the creators' needs. And I will be the first to go on the record. I know this is an unpopular opinion among some of the people in our industry. The partner team was definitely bloated at one point. I 100% think that's the case. I know that's the case, and they spent a shit ton of money. The partner team were very good at wine and dining for zero reason and zero business benefit, and I was on the receiving end of some of those wine and dines. Thank you very much, Twitch, for thank you, Twitch. But some of those people, they hired for Rolodex and not necessarily business acumen, and I think they had a real hard time with that. But it's almost over-indexed. It went from being too much to being almost nothing. Not enough. There are just not enough partner people at Twitch. There are some. There are not enough of them for especially how big the site's gotten since COVID, which made its user base go up significantly because people were isolated. They were more interested in finding ways to express themselves, etc. Live streaming became a part of that digest. I knew a lot of people who were quote unquote normies that got into live streaming as a hobby during the pandemic and are continuing to do it today. And some of them amassing enough to become a partner and meet the partner guideline, much less the big creators. And so I think that's my perspective on it, is the fact that that communication doesn't exist there because, again, back to what we said earlier, I think Twitch views itself as a technology company and that it is a tech service that you as a creator are using, similar to Patreon, similar to Substack, similar to some of these other platforms. But I think, and Substack is dealt with this as someone who is a creator over there, is that when your business is content, you are not just a technology company. You need to be in some lockstep with your creators, because exactly what Devin said, how does this impact my livelihood, right? That's super, super important. I think Twitch, the current leadership of Twitch, doesn't necessarily get that, nor care, because they view themselves very much as a technology service.
I want to run a little bit of air cover for Zach here real quick on that, because here's the thing, okay? So in 2012, 2011 or so, I went to a PAX West. I walked up to the Twitch booth. I'm a nobody. I mean, literally a nobody. I end up meeting John Howell in a purple shirt, head of partnerships at the time, right? And I had a laminated business plan, and I said, if you partner me, I'm going to do all these things. I had all these bullet points. I'm going to grow your platform, all this stuff, right? I'd planned this whole thing out. This guy's like, bitch, did you just give me a laminated business plan? Okay, do you know what this is? Okay, and I'm like, and then he walks me over to a computer. He partners me on the spot, and that interaction is probably a large reason why I'm who I am today. And further, so it might seem like it's kind of crazy that the partnership team is open bar, everybody, let's go. And but what that actually resulted in was that feeling of culture, that pulse that made Twitch what it was, and losing. I think over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen people we've seen the partnership team just get gutted and disempowered. And so I really do correlate that. There's a lot of other reasons and a lot we've discussed about today, but I really do correlate that to that feeling of man, Twitch isn't talking, to the point where we had, before we switched over from being a talent agency, we had tier 1 creators that didn't have partner reps. They just didn't have PMs last year, right? They can't get a hold of anybody. And how does that feel if you have 15,000 concurrent viewers on Twitch, but you can't talk to somebody on Twitch? They're looking crazy, right? Whereas Ludwig or someone on YouTube is a DM away from the head of YouTube Live. Yeah, like straight up, right? And that dude is super responsive, and he's amazing. Yeah, so that, I think that feeling was important. I I think Twitch in general for a time was overstaffed. To your point, but partnerships is one of the places where I actually thought that they should have maintained their user base.
I think
before Zach goes, I just want to say I think it very much feels like some business executive, with an MBA and understands P&L and balance sheets, went in there and just went like, "Wow, why does this one department spend so much fucking money? We need to cut this."
Yeah,
they don't understand the nominal value, or non-nominal, the intangible value of that department and what it does for the community.
Yeah.
I don't think they understood that at all. It just became, let's cut.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, let's trim some fat.
I think that's whether it's apocryphal or not, I think that's a brilliant way to look at it, because the idea is some executive somewhere, I don't know who this was, looked at it and said, wow, the partnership team, we spend this much on salaries, this much on, travel and expenses, this much on partner support or whatever it is. But we if we increase that number, the number of hours watched doesn't go up. And if we decrease that number, the number of hours watched doesn't go down. So they're not
number of people that subscribe with Amazon Prime doesn't go up.
And so if we cut this and the number of number of hours watched and the number of revenue per hours watched stays the same, let's just cut it and reduce our cost, without understanding that the entire point of this team, and I can tell you from everything that I was taught in my professional life as a Twitch employee, partnerships, community manager, was the idea is there should always be somebody at Twitch that you can talk to, because we are different. Because we are different than YouTube. One of the biggest points
100%.
of frustration was that if you were a creator on YouTube and you had a problem with your upload or your monetization or a technical question,
You're
or
hosed. You talk to the soulless
you talk to
mother
a support, an automated chatbot. And the whole point of partnerships was, hey, if you're successful enough on Twitch, we can guarantee you a resource to talk to eventually. It might not be immediate.
And now it's reversed.
It might not be automatic. It might not be, but we will get somebody to talk to who you can say, hey, here's my problem. Here's my context. One of the best quotes that I have ever heard in my life, and that I try to incorporate into my everyday life, is by an author, Michael Brooks. It says, be kind to people and be ruthless with systems. The whole point is we could be people at Twitch that our partners could talk to. And I could go in and do exactly what Devin is talking about. And I can't tell you the number of times I picked up my phone at 2:00 in the morning because a partner called me terrified about what they were going to do for content for the next month or something like that. And I didn't actually know the answer, but I was just somebody that said, hey, it's going to be okay. I'm here. And that's
dude, you were that guy for me sometimes.
That's all I wanted to do.
It's so true. Yeah.
Because
it's so true.
Twitch streamers, YouTube content creators, podcasters, Twitter shit posters. I'm sorry, Twitter, that's what we're going to call you for today. They're people. And they have fears and anxieties and all of that wrapped up, and they don't get the same admiration. They don't get the same support. They don't get the same culture of, hey, it's going to be okay. We're going to teach you how to do this. Everything is you're going to do it on your own. And that's one of the things where you might consider it bloated. You might have said overstaffed or anything like that. I am proud of the work that I did and my partnerships team, that I was taught how to be a really good partner manager by John Howell, Kevin Lynn, all of those people.
The gods.
They built a
goats.
culture of saying you have to care about people.
Yeah. And then we've completely lost. Now it's reversed. By the way, if you're a mid-sized creator on YouTube, you're one DM away from anybody you want to talk to. Their support is amazing. You can literally at YouTube support
even
on
me.
Twitter.
Granted, I'm privileged because I'm a former ESPN journalist.
There you go.
Nonetheless, when we started, I got a conversation with somebody.
Yeah,
at YouTube,
it's
and
incredible.
We don't even have.
It's totally
have
reversed.
A single sub yet.
Yeah, there's we'd love you to be here. And I think there's just that culture on YouTube Live is there, right? The dude that runs that is Jay Grell, and he just has that mindset, right? Jacob, we can't end the show, man, without you talking about the sneaky move that I can't believe it hasn't come up yet that Twitch made, slithering this in on this announcement that simulcasting is completely being eliminated. Can we broach it? Are you going to do more content, or do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Dude.
We've got several audience questions. Give a little bit of context for the listeners that overall so there was a change last fall. Previously, if you streamed on Twitch, you could not stream anywhere else. You were while you were live on Twitch, you were bound to Twitch. That was it. And if you violated that rule and you were a partner, you were subject to being banned off the platform. That was death. Your Twitch career could be over if you violated this. What changed in the fall of last year, and this is right around the time that the sub split happened, and this was, I think, partially a response to the sub split. If you're unfamiliar, because it's come up a couple times in the show, they were changing. It used to be that, then there was some data around this, that it was like 20% of the people on the site had unique partner agreements that enabled them basically to make more revenue because they were big, notable creators, and Twitch saw some more value in them. I think it was 20% of them in like 2018 or 2019. It's now less than 5% in 2023, probably even smaller than that, but we don't have new data on this, have unique agreements. And some of those were 80-20, 70-30, where the creator was getting 80% or 70% of revenue and Twitch was getting 20 to 30% of revenue. Do the math on that, on what $5 is on a tier 1 sub or a Prime sub, or a donation, etc. And it was changing that the people that have those agreements will now be 50-50, except for their first $1 million in revenue, which goes by really, really fast when you are one of the big streamers that probably has one of those agreements. $1 million is kind of a drop in the bucket. You probably gross $1 million before splitting it with Twitch and any payment process fees, etc., pretty quickly. And so they changed it, and they said nobody else is getting any preferential agreements moving forward. So if you're a new streamer, tough shit, you're not getting the ability to do it. And now you are going to have to be 50-50 just like everybody else. On a personal level, I will say this is why I don't even bother with Twitch. It feels like a waste of fucking time losing 50% of my revenue when I could go to Substack or Patreon or anywhere else. Yeah,
92% of your income. Yeah. But you're getting 87% and you actually have someone who hops on the fucking phone, to Zach's point, hops on the phone with you like every other week to make sure, how are things going? What strategies can we do to help you grow, etc. Right? Like, and that's only costing you 13% for that TLC, right? Like, so some of the response to that was that Twitch said you can stream on any other non-horizontal platform, non-16:9 platform simultaneously. So this is TikTok. This is, I'm trying to remember what all the various different ones that are applicable. TikTok's the big one that people come to immediately. They only listed TikTok Live. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you cannot simulcast on Facebook or YouTube.
Yeah.
Which are notably horizontal video, 16:9 aspect ratio, same as Twitch. The first creator to call that bluff was Ninja, who I did a little bit of reporting and digging on this. I don't think Ninja had very many good offers. Certainly one, I think that even at the fall of last year and the summer of last year, people were starting to cut back on their spending on creators. Like I said previously, Ninja himself had also fallen off a little bit relative to the audience. He's still a massive creator. I'm not insulting him by saying that, but he's not the guy that he was in 2018, 2019. And he was never going to get another deal the size of the bag that he got at Mixer and the size of the bag that he got when he came back to Twitch from Mixer when Mixer died. And so instead, he decided that he was going to, and I've criticized how he did it, but decided he was going to stream everywhere and call Twitch's bluff and say, fuck you, Twitch. I am going to simul stream on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, the whole thing. And what has changed today, also good sharing from Zach Bussey, that there is now in the new Twitch partner agreement, which they are going to force you to sign.
They are pushing it to be more. They are pushing a update across to every single person
to every
do
single
this.
person.
Yes,
and you can now not. You are now not going to be able to stream.
Can I read
on
it?
Facebook and YouTube. Yeah, read the term.
Yeah,
Devin, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so this is in section 11 terms of service. Okay, when you are streaming live on Twitch services, you may not simultaneously live stream or broadcast (quotations simulcast) on any other (quotations) Twitch-like service, meaning any web-based network, platform, or service that supports live streaming or user-generated content without advanced written permission from Twitch. For clarity, you may simulcast on mobile-first services that support live streaming. The section does not apply to non-profit or government entities. So they literally have told... So previously, I have had like a ton of YouTube videos where I've been like, look, like really think about what Twitch affiliate gives you. Spoiler alert, fucking nothing. Okay. And like actually like be like, okay, you could just drop affiliate and you could go multi-stream and your discovery is going to go from 0, which it is on Twitch, to like maybe someone on like YouTube or even like Kick or whatever. Like I just talked to a couple of people from Kick that were like, yeah, my viewership went from like 0 to like 90 because there's like there's a thing called the streamer to viewer ratio, which is like on Twitch is like there's so many streamers per each viewer that it's almost impossible to get discovered. But on these other platforms where there's less broadcasters and more people that want to watch, it's actually possible to actually get people to just kind of filter into your chat and come check it out. So a lot of people were dropping affiliate and then they were going to multi-stream just to kind of see what was going to perform. And when you think about it, it's a very smart business decision. Like, okay, like maybe I'll go with Twitch and I'll accept a partnership if I start to take off there. But hey, maybe I'm actually taking off on YouTube. I'm going to move my brand there and I'm going to build here. What Twitch in their infinite hubris and arrogance is saying, you have to now stream on Twitch or nowhere else. And that led to like Ninja making a tweet like just recently, as of like an hour ago of this podcast, of just being like, well, what the hell do you want me to do? Like, I'm just like I'm obviously not going to, like Jacob said, I'm not going to bother. Like, okay, like I'm done. And I cannot underline how arrogant of a move this is from Twitch, and maybe not even like legally enforceable. I'm not your fucking employee. I'm not like what are you doing? You think you can hold me exclusively? If I'm a 0 viewer person going to try your website for the only time, are you really? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna ban me? You don't have the moderation, bitch. Like it just pisses me off so much. These clowns. I can't believe they did this. They stuck this in with like. All right, I gotta mute. I'm too angry. God damn.
I think it's extremely interesting. I agree with so many of your sentiments, Devin, where it's like, what is the value of being a partner on Twitch these days versus being an affiliate? Like, why not just downgrade yourself and, stream everywhere? One of the things that I understand, at least from if I'm putting on my corporate hat and trying to say, why am I making this choice? It's probably largely because you have a lot of people who are saying, I'm going to stream on Twitch and not be monetized in any way. So I'm not taking subscriptions and I'm not running pre-roll. I'm not running mid-roll. And therefore the only revenue that Twitch is able to generate from your content is from pre-roll. And I bet you that across the spectrum of their creators where they're seeing this, they're saying we're losing a ton of money on these people who are not making money for us and are,
the small streamers. I
don't even know if it's just the small streamers, but like Ninja might be the perfect case of saying, how much money does it cost to serve 10,000, 20,000, concurrent viewers to Ninja's audience when he doesn't,
we can't take a cut.
And we don't take anything other than like a couple bucks of pre-roll that get, a day. And so is that a smart decision? I do not think so. I don't think it's in Twitch's best interest or in the creator's best interest, but there's no question that it doesn't make sense in a world where you want these people to be consistently bringing in new audiences. They're just going to say, cool, Twitch isn't worth the effort anymore.
Well, that, and I also think it's so crazy. Like, just run ads against those streams. You can do it infinitely. You can control the amount of ads you serve against those streams. And like, basically Twitch has, for, we haven't talked about in this discussion in former shows. I know this has come up a lot. Twitch's future of monetization is advertising, period. Right? That's why they've recently changed the split. The way they're going to do this is they're going to try to get brands to spend money on the website. And like I've said in the beginning of the show, good luck with that. But like, if you are going to do anything, that's the way it's going to be done. So if you want to push more ads, but like, I just don't understand the arrogance in the room at Twitch where the only way that conversation could go is like, these streamers have nowhere else to be. Like Kick's a joke, YouTube's a joke. Like we're obviously the market movers. They're looking at the percentage of market share they have, and they're being like, okay, these people have nowhere to go. That we will absolutely just force every single person into exclusivity by contract. And again, I just want one. Like, where is like one of those like at lawyer people who's just going to be like, yeah, sure, I'll take this up. Like let's go to California where you're based and see how exclusivity works. Like let's see how that holds up, because that is such bullshit. And it's so predatory to all of the small broadcasters that just can't defend themselves, that are never going to be able to, like, they just assume and message me every day and they're like, yo, like, yeah, I guess I just can't multi-stream. Like, you're literally just punishing smaller creators for like how many people in like the 5,000 CCU or greater category really multi-stream? Like Ninja and
they don't need to, right? They don't need to.
Exactly.
They use effectively to Zach's point, and then I want to get at the audience questions because people have been patient, but they use effectively to Zach's point earlier, and to Devin's point. I think you both talked about this, that Twitch is almost like advertising. It's TikTok has used this way a lot too. It's to get people to other platforms where you make better money, be that YouTube, etc., Patreon, right? Like where there's a better split of revenue, or there's a bigger, the CPM is better, right? There's another conversation I have about Twitch's advertising and how awful it is and unmeasured and CPM's bad, etc. That has been talked about on the show before too. But generally, more broadly, Twitch is really useful to help send people to other platforms where you make a more direct line of revenue. and you don't, it is a big giant billboard. And yes, it is entertainment. Yes, the biggest streamers on there, Asmongold, Hassan Piker, Ebuy, etc., make a shit ton of money, truly. But in the sort of mid-level creator space, it's more useful to try to send people to another platform where you're going to make more money. That's what it's useful for, is this thing. So we do have an audience question that is related to something we talked about earlier, which is from that fall blog post from Dan Clancy about streaming costs. So Frame Chasers, go ahead with your question for Zach and Devin.
Hello. Hey. Yeah, so you guys were talking about earlier that the majority of why they're doing all this is because they can't, as they were scaling up from Justin TV, they just couldn't afford all these hosting costs and whatnot, right? So instead of doing all this, why didn't they ever try and go with a model like, unless you're a partner, you gotta pay for turbo, or kind of what Twitch does with kind of what Twitter does with Twitter Blue, if you know what I'm saying. Like, unless you subscribe to Twitter Blue, your posts aren't going to go up. You can't really be a creator without it. Here's your monthly fee to kind of use the platform, right? And then with the partner contracts, they could have just been like, okay, we'll waive the fee now to stream, kind of thing, right? Does that make sense?
He's asking a little bit about why they don't make small streamers pay for transcoding or pay for use of the service, rather than them just stream for free and incur a ton of costs.
Sure.
Because you instantaneously push this as soon as someone else offers that service for free, like YouTube, you're out of the game.
Yep.
That's why.
It was offered for free for so long, and it was a core part of, you actually have to think of it as like a flywheel, is that people come to Twitch to watch and see their stream, their favorite thing. They're watching an esport thing. Maybe it's the first time that they're seeing Twitch, and they see how easy it is to go live. That's another potential like hook into the system of, I could be a creator. I'm going to watch. I'm going to stay. I'm going to be part of Twitch. I think it's like a realistic option of kind of sitting back and saying, I think there's like a dozen different ways that Twitch could go today, which says, hey, if you're a creator and you want to pay us, $10 a month or $100 a month or whatever it is, and we'll give you 4K streaming options. Or if we, want to do, like, there's ways in which Twitch could say, how do we offset these costs? Hint, it's really expensive to stream live video. Like, there's a reason why platforms fail all the time at this, but I don't think that Twitch has thought enough about that. And I just think it was too easy to say, yeah, we've been doing this forever, and there's no way we could walk that back. It would cut off the never ending supply of new streamers that they could pull into their ecosystem.
Sorry, go ahead, Jacob.
I was going to say there's an aspirational nature to it that hooks people in too. Like to Zach's point, you think like, I could do this as well. It's part of what makes made esports, I think, at one point quite successful, but now I think hardcore gaming on PC is in decline itself, which is also impacting esports. But it would be like, I'd watch the pros.
I'll be on Diablo 4 2 minutes after this call, okay?
I watch the pros play these games, and one day I could be them, right? And like there's a huge inflection point there around the audience. And I think there is some of that with Twitch at an even bigger scale. And like I said, even more with the pandemic. The pandemic activated Twitch in a way that I have not seen it impact almost any form of entertainment long lasting, right? It did a lot for streaming video on Netflix, Hulu, etc. But those things have had a significant drop off post pandemic as the world has healed and gone back to being able, post vaccine, able to socialize, able to go outside and mingle and resume a much more normal social life. Twitch has, yes, hit a little bit of a drop off too post vaccinations. However, they got such a big boost that even with the drop off, it's really, really noticeable the amount of people that are now on Twitch that got into the Twitch ecosystem and became a part of the Twitch ecosystem as a result of being isolated in their home for close to a year. And that cannot be understated, in my opinion.
Yeah, the aspirational thing is really important because you have to give people the feeling that streaming is accessible and sort of one click away. Twitch has made a lot of updates to try to do this, to try to bring like creators onto the platform in that way. And they are the market leader, right? So if they did something like implement like a paid strategy, like, oh my God, especially like that became hard. Maybe that was an option like 3 or 4 years ago when like Twitch's sentiment was still like, oh yeah, you guys like are a cool platform, but you sometimes make inconsistent ban things. But nowadays, man, like imagine imagine the Twitter spaces we would have if they did a like
They
now
started
you have to pay to
charging,
stream.
yeah.
Yeah, we'd be here the next day being like, you fucking idiots. You know, like, it's just it just can't happen. Yeah.
Yeah. We have another question from Deathsea. If you want to go ahead and ask your question for Devin and Zach.
Magic the Gathering content creator.
Hello, Magic the Gathering. It's great to hear.
Go ahead.
My name is Desi, and I'm in Bangkok right now. I've been up for like 30-something hours, but I couldn't miss this conversation. So my question to you guys today is, are brands currently willing to sponsor a community or project instead of a creator, streamer, or platform? So we talk a lot about platforms because obviously they're important, but is there value beyond the platform itself?
That's a great question, actually. Sorry, let me fix. Okay, this Twitter space is like, I'm like talking on my phone at the same time. Is like, this is just like crazy. We are more excited to give sponsorship dollars to events than ever before. We love the idea of some of the very unique integrations that have happened at, particularly like some of the calls to action that can be done with events, that if you are a content creator and you are trying to expand into getting sponsored, one of the best pitches you can have is making some kind of event. And I'll use an example where Tasteless, actually, a StarCraft, OG StarCraft creator, made an event that had some help from Twitch. And I should also mention, by the way, that if you're a content creator, Twitch Events is a team at Twitch that's still active and will actually sponsor events and pay for you to have those events as well, because they understand the importance of this. At least that department does. So I'm not sure about the executives, but they do. And there's a budget for that. So you can, not only can you actually approach Twitch directly through their email and be like, hey, I'm running this event, can I get sponsored? Your chance of getting of pitching that directly to a brand and sending, let's say you send 2 cold emails, okay? And one cold email is, hey, I'm Desi, I'm the Magic the Gathering creator, I've got this number of people on Twitch, and like I'm making this happen. And then your second cold email is like, hey, I'm this guy, but I am running a Magic the Gathering tournament that is like literally going to be like 15 of the best players. We're going to get together. That second pitch has such a better chance of getting picked up and for more money. And this is why you see a lot of people like OTK going to making like a lot of live events. We are super excited to sponsor events, so way more so than we are individual creators, for sure. Yeah.
So should I be making my own event?
Yeah, man. Yeah, hit me. Yeah. Do it and hit me up. DM me.
I think it's a really great question. I think this is one of the things that's so interesting about esports, and this is probably another episode, Jacob. But it's like this idea of, where do brands and sponsors get value? Where do they see, sort of like this ROI? And I think there's a great comparison of like somebody saying, a brand can go to the Super Bowl and get 10 million, ad impressions or whatever, if they buy a Super Bowl ad spot, or you can go to Mr. Beast and get 20 million, 50 million, views. And it's like, yeah, but there's a legitimacy associated with being vetted, being important enough, getting through to the Super Bowl, as opposed to just sponsoring a Mr. Beast video or something like that. And I think we're seeing a shift in the way that brands and sponsors want to work with audiences, influencers, creators, and communities, where it's like, it's not just about that notoriety of saying, oh, cool, we are, sponsoring the most professional influencer or the biggest creator on YouTube or Twitch. They are saying, hey, there's an actual more authentic way, perhaps even a more cost-effective way to reach the audience that we really want to go to. And to Devin's point, it's like, yeah, I bet you there are lots of brands. It's not going to be your Coca-Cola of the world, because they need some level of like protection and security and stability. But there are probably lots of brands out there willing to do it. Or maybe
we get that. We actually get that level of protection and security through events, because we were talking about brand safety, right? And one of the best ways to guarantee brand safety is like an event. And there's going to be a lot of smaller content creators. They're going to be like, well, that's great, Devin. All I got to do, forehead, is just run an event. But the truth is that, like, dude, like some of the greatest events I've seen are like little Smash gatherings where you get like some collaborators together and make something happen. Like when you say event, you think of something like Creator Clash with like huge YouTubers hitting each other with balls and stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like grassroots, like events where you compete in a game, you get 10 or 15 people together. Like you can do it and pitch a sponsor on that. And like to Zach's point, brand safety, like we're excited to sponsor those events because we kind of know it's going to be on lock. Like the likelihood of someone going off the rails and like spouting something crazy at like one of these events is way less than like an individual content creator on the stream that decides to go psycho. Like, and brands kind of intuitively know that. It's way easier for us. Like as an agency, I have to educate each brand on each play that we make, right? So they're oftentimes they're asking us, why are you doing this? Right? Like, why are you spending this? And it's a way easier take for me to say something like, well, I know this content creator in the past went insane, but for this particular thing, they won't. Then it is like educating a brand. It's like, okay, this particular event is going to be like super solid. It's like got competition, it's got oversight, blah, blah, blah. It's like such an easier conversation to have. We can spend that money way more easily for sure. Yeah. And to Zach's point, get better results, right? So
I think the last spoken audience question we're going to have is from Tessa_VT.
Hi. Twitch partners and their branding and reputation. I manage VTubers, and there's a lot of people who are really anxious about this stuff, especially with sponsors and stuff. And I'm kind of nervous and stressed about all this, and I don't know a whole lot about Kick. I'm always just so busy. And what is worse for a partner's branding? Staying on Twitch with current news or swapping to like Kick and then swapping back to Twitch with the likelihood of sponsors and advertisers not falling to Kick because of their shaky grounds and controversy. It's tough for me. I feel like I could be wrong in like a year. Who knows how the swapping is all going to look like and how the market's going to change. But it's just like, do I encourage early adoption or do I just wait for the dust to settle?
Fantastic question. Thank you.
I will. So speaking again to this as a brand agency, no one cares. So like the reality is like, you will not be held accountable to the as an individual influencer by brands, right, for the platform that you're on. So for example, like if you're on Twitch and you're making a bunch of decisions to be on Twitch, the only reason you should make those decisions is if it's in your best interest as an influencer to be on those platforms. Don't worry about it from a sponsorship perspective. We'll sponsor you unless Twitch like just goes crazy. There's actually no universe where it happens, right? Like if you're considering multi-streaming to Kick or going to Kick or something like that, then at that point you have to consider, well, brands can't follow me here because it's just too hot, but you should not make any decisions at the behest of the platform and what they're doing, because you will be regarded individually for your merit by all of us. Like when I'm spending dollars on you, I'm going to decide what you as an influencer are bringing to the table, and I will not do that on a platform basis.
I think that's a really, really particular, keen insight, which is that, like, you know, it's trust yourself in particular. Like the brands, the agencies, they understand that like new platforms will be coming along. That's one of the things that OTK truly does believe, is that like we are platform agnostic. We're going to create where our audience is and where the like future of our platforms and ecosystem and all of this content is going. But realistically, I think one thing to consider, and this is something that a couple of Black Twitch creators had come up specifically in response to Twitch's lack of moderation around, you know, racism on the platform, where everybody's suggestion was, oh, just go stream on this other platform, or go, you know, leave Twitch and create content somewhere else, or simulcast, build another brand somewhere else. Is that's still work. That is still effort on your part as a creator to understand the ecosystem, you know, understand the technology, build up your moderation tools, you know, get stats, understand this. And that's if it's like close to Twitch. If it's different than Twitch in a completely different context, there's an entire thing there. So don't be afraid that, like, I think the best advice that anyone on this panel or in content creation would tell you is like, diversify your platforms regardless. Never put all of your eggs into one basket, but specifically don't hold yourself to this idea that you need to be on every platform, because there is some sense of like dilution in that context. Choose the platforms where you think your content will find its audience. So, you know what, maybe Instagram Live isn't the place for your VTuber streams. That's okay. You can find a really strategic way to utilize Instagram, but, you know, don't worry that just because you've moved over, you know, you're staying on Twitch, that brands are going to suddenly think that it's a toxic space for you to be in or anything like that.
I also want to impact your question from another perspective, which is that we tend to get caught up macroscopically in the changes that these platforms are making. The reality is that for the vast majority of content creators, this will have a 0% impact on you. And most of the changes that the platform makes have a 0% impact on you because you are part of a very niche ecosystem within an ecosystem within an ecosystem within an ecosystem. So like a lot of people that get like the worst nightmare for me is like you're a content creator, you decide to make videos on YouTube and you read a blog post that says that YouTube's ad monetization is changing and you stop making videos. Like, holy shit, that's so sad because that never would have impacted you in the first place, right? Like you have to realize that you are out for yourself as a content creator and you must, as to Zach's point, you must consistently make the best decisions for yourself and your brand, regardless of anything else that is happening in the ecosystem. Most likely it's not going to affect you. And even if it does, if you're on your game and you're one of the top players, you just need to keep creating, keep making stuff happen, and keep just kind of analyzing where you are in your ecosystem is the best advice that we can give. Because like if you get caught up in this drama, you might think that it's like the end of the world, but Twitch is still thriving. There's still a place to be made here, right? There's still stuff to be done. And even if you like, I would argue too, like, look, if I'm going to go to Periscope or like freaking, I don't know, D Live, but I'm going to be the number one fish there. Maybe I want to be the big, the big fish in the small pond. And I'm now, like, I know plenty of people that are making full-time income off of Facebook pages, that are making like full-time income off of Telegram, right? Like there's plenty of that going around. So don't underestimate that and get caught up in like and this is like a big mistake. Like so many people have started streaming on Twitch because they just assume that's the place to be. But in reality, they would have done way better and built a brand and had a completely different future on something like YouTube. Yeah, like so. Keep that in mind.
I want to say something as a creator who, and I view myself that way, even though I'm traditionally a journalist, as a creator who in the past 2.5 years has had to make a really big change in my life and experience what you're talking about a little bit firsthand. You know, when I was at ESPN, when I was at Esports, I didn't have to worry about distribution points. There were people like Zach and others that, not actually Zach, but Zach's type role, strategy level people that had to worry about my distribution points. I very rarely, unless I had a big idea that I wanted in a certain place that I was going to produce top to finish, which was rare, maybe once or twice a year, I didn't have to worry about distribution ever. And I made the active choice 2.5 years ago to go independent in a part of my life, especially in the video and audio side of things. And now I have to worry about distribution points every single day. And it's really, really important. I have to think about because not only does my livelihood, but other people that work for me livelihood depend on my ability to perform, which sounds like is also the case with you, Tessa, and the people that you manage and work with. You know, it's the biggest thing I can give advice to other creators is to think very logically about things. Don't overreact to what Devin was saying about, like, you know, these kind of broader announcements. Think very logically, do your market research, take swings in places that you think might be valuable to you. And you very well might fail in some of those instances. It may not have been worth your time. I think one of the things that has scared me the most, going into my mental health a little bit, is that I was so successful at one thing where I never managed my distribution that if something doesn't work on distribution in the future, that I look like a failure. I cannot tell you the benefit that it means as an up-and-comer when you're building a brand to have the freedom to fail in a vacuum and no one give a shit, right? And basically in the future, your ability to pivot and do something else and it be okay. And as long as you weren't a bad person, people forgive you, right? Like, it's fine. You know, and so I think, like, take some real agency in that and experiment, to Zach's point, because now is the time. And when you hit some really significant scale, it gets much harder from there. So if you're working with people who are still on the come up and growing, try new things, because ultimately, you know, if it works, excellent. If it doesn't, that's okay. Move on to the next one. All right. So this is from Kurgane _Steel. So the mention of Twitch not doing targeted ads was brought up. Given that Twitch is owned by Amazon, why do you think the leadership is not leveraging that Amazon Twitch connection to do the targeted ads, given that a lot of people have their account linked? So I think the question is, given the Amazon data that they have of people that use Twitch, given that there's overlap, and I know what you're about to say, Devin, I'll preempt you on it and then I'll throw it to you.
Okay, sorry.
The question is, why, given all the data that Amazon has about consumer spending, et cetera, and when someone links Amazon and Twitch and they use Prime, et cetera, why aren't they using that to make better targeted ads? I can say, as a reporter who has reported on Twitch, Twitch has some of the worst user data ever of any platform in any sort of social media, video delivery service. You know, YouTube is pretty bad on live, but YouTube's very good on actual VOD and giving you demo data, etc. Podcasts are the gold standard. IAB is fucking amazing. Podcasts give you everything you need to know about a person. Yeah. They're amazing. They're great. Twitch is the worst, and there's kind of two reasons for that. One is because a lot of people use Twitch unauthenticated. They, like, straight up actually don't log in. So yes, they are watching. They count as a number on the CCV counter, but they are not actually logged in their account, so you don't know what they are. And 2, there's functionally really no tracking pixel or cookie, etc., that exists on Twitch in the same way that it does when you go to certain websites, and you have to consent to some of that now with new security law and privacy law. But nonetheless, that exact corollary doesn't exist on Twitch. They get some of that data, the ability to view some of what you are and some of what, like what your profile is as they build out for advertisers, but it is nowhere near to what Devin said, even fucking close to like Google AdSense, a gold standard, or podcasts and gold standard when it comes to multimedia. They're nowhere even close, and they're probably the worst in category of various different video content.
And further, that targeting system just doesn't exist. So if I were to go to Twitch right now and I was going to say, hey, I've got $300,000 to spend, I want to target a demographic between 18 and 36-year-old females, but who buy predominantly luxury goods, they can't do it. Like the system doesn't exist. They've been working on building that system for years, but they just don't have it. I think his question also pointed to, why don't we just import this stuff from Amazon that does have that data? And the problem is that Amazon is a fundamentally different service and website than Twitch is. So I mean, Amazon was built on buying books and shit, and now is like buying everything else. When Amazon does have a very robust program for affiliates and for people that want to sell stuff on Amazon or whatever, but that system is a totally different thing than Twitch. I mean, Zach seems to understand. He can probably
you hit the nail on the head, and this is something that it's really hard for people who don't work in the space, whether it's advertising or technology, to understand that it's not just cool, connect system A and system B, and then they talk to each other perfectly. One of the things that people, vastly oversimplify or underappreciate is that Google is the world's most popular search engine, and YouTube is the world's second most popular search engine.
Yeah,
and they are owned by the same company, and they can integrate their tracking and like suggestions and advertising technology very tightly. Amazon has similar levels of they can track people and they'll serve you ads, but I can ask you, if you've searched for something on Google and then you get served in ads, sometimes it's relevant. The last time I bought something on Amazon and I bought a broom, and then it starts showing me ads for brooms, and I'm like, I already own the broom. I bought it.
I own a broom.
I don't need this. And so you can imagine that even if we did have that level of targeting, what is Amazon going to show you? It's going to say, these are some of your past searches. You've already bought this thing, or this is something that you got linked to and are not interested in anymore, or anything like that. So just the ways in which we use these platforms is so different that it wouldn't make sense. Twitch would, I will say, I think it's a blessing in disguise, because can you imagine if Twitch did have all that super targeted advertising? We talk about how much we hate tracking pixels and cookies accepting and all this stuff. Granted, it makes the industry a lot harder to make money in, but we are at the benefit of the fact that they don't track us down to a pixel and what we watch.
Did you know that on Amazon, there's actually an IVS service that runs a QVC type ad thing where live streamers are on Amazon and they're advertising products. They're showing stuff like this water bottle is the coolest bottle, and it just uses Twitch's backend. But that kind of goes to Zach's point of how fundamentally different these services are. That if you think about running ads against something like that, which is a direct, if you go on TikTok Live, for example, you'll see hundreds of streams of people that are just selling products. Buy it now, and it's a totally different thing than what you're doing on Twitch. You can't link those advertising services together.
I want to say, comparing Google and YouTube to Amazon too, and how they're different, because Amazon is a very dominant search engine. If you think about it from that perspective, it's a huge search engine. But I think the way that I just thought about this when Zach was saying this, Google and YouTube explore your curiosities, good, bad, or indifferent, right? You have a single thought. Google is probably the first place you're going to put it. And as someone who has had to start smoking to reduce some pain in my shoulder, I find myself Googling random shit in the middle of being high and trying to not be in pain anymore. Just random shit, and then I get served advertising for that. But
why are ducks so mean?
I don't have a relationship with Amazon like that. I go into I rarely even go into Amazon for product research. I go into Amazon when I know what the fuck I want to buy. I am maybe looking for some options, but I know exactly what I want. It's very targeted in my mind. It is not exploring my curiosity. It is not trying to better educate me on what I may want to buy or what I may want to look at. It is straight up, it is the experience of I know what I want here. And to Zach's point, if you already know what you want, why is it helpful to be served an ad when you already knew what you want? You already bought the damn thing you want. That's what I think is important. And I'm very curious how Twitch is going to solve that problem, because to Kuragane's question, advertising is Twitch's number one problem, and it's such if they could fix that, they could go back to being more creator friendly and everything else, but they can't. Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, their CPM is not super great because they don't have as much data, etc. There are so many issues, and so many of their issues revolve around advertising.
And they relied for a long time on the sort of new car smell of like, oh, brands will try this out. And now that's played out. Like, we get it. There's
a whole conversation to be talked about, which is how many brands tried through Twitch or tried through esports, didn't find success, and said, I'll never spend there again.
Dude, tens of millions of dollars in just what I've seen, right? Like, yeah, and just those conversations. And the other thing too is like, when you speaking from the brand agency perspective, there's not that many of us, right? Like Madison Avenue is like maybe like 4 or 5 companies, and like really significant brand spend on new media is like maybe like 4 or 5 others. We all talk to each other. Like if we're like, yeah, we had like a dog experience, that'll pop up in Adweek or somewhere, and then like nobody will spend there. You know, they won't even try. They don't even give that exploratory budget, especially at the minimums that Twitch asks for. Yeah.
Well, we're going to end the podcast there. I think these guys are being good sports and going basically close to an hour over at this point. Devin was here for 3 hours last time he was here, and that was not intentional, but it was great. Zach,
I got nothing to do.
We were long. You got Diablo 4 to play, Devin.
It's true.
Marvel Snap new season. Okay, it's a move season. We got to get competitive.
I'm all about Marvel Snap. I'm not. I've been on the record saying I don't play Blizzard games, and you can probably guess why. As someone who's reported on some of that stuff, but yeah. Nonetheless,
dude, I respect
for
your morals. Just that you actually not playing Diablo 4 because you don't believe in the company. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not playing Diablo 4. I refuse to even play Warzone, even though it's free.
You're such a badass. I literally am like, dude, I believe everything you believe, but I'm just gonna play it anyway.
You're just like, I'm gonna play.
I'm that guy on Reddit that's like, I'm so angry, and then I just go buy the Ultimate Edition. It's so terrible, dude. But respect to you, like, for doing that. Seriously,
I played probably 3,000 or 4,000 hours per year of World of Warcraft since Cataclysm, and I haven't touched it for 2 years. And then that there are issues with sexual abuse, and not just issues with sexual abuse, because I do play Riot games still. There are issues with sexual abuse, and their guttural, unsympathetic reaction to those issues of sexual abuse is why I don't do it. That is my take on Blizzard. But yes, that's I am jealous and envious of your ability to play Diablo 4. I am a principled person.
No, make no mistake. You're in the right here. Like I wish that more people took a stance, and I wish I had the moral integrity to do that for sure. Like that's a really powerful thing to do. I've talked to a couple other people that have just like flat out like, yeah, I will not play a Blizzard game for those reasons, and I really respect those people. Yeah.
Sucks.
For sure.
I was semi-pro at Call of Duty at one point too, and I don't play those games anymore.
Yeah, but you know, you take a stand for something or nothing. Like on Twitch, I ended my broadcast and said I'm just not okay with these changes, and I was making like $150K a year off of that show. It was like really not beneficial to do. But at some point, like you've got to vote with your feet if you really believe in something, and I respect you for doing that.
It's powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But we'll end the show. If this is your first time listening, as I imagine there are many people here who have never listened to Visionaries, we have an incredible back library. I'm going to plug ourselves, including past episodes with these guys where they were not together. They were with separate other people. Zach was on with Cecilia D'Anastasio, the incredible reporter from Bloomberg, who does great work about trust, has done really great work about trust and safety issues at Twitch and corporate issues at Twitch. She's wonderful. I'm sure we will have her back on the show. Devin was here with Harris Peskin, who is the esports attorney who... wow, that episode is crazy to think about now with the striking of the LCSPA and all the various different issues. I think we crystal ball forecasted some of those things during that episode as well. But we have had many other episodes with some very, very successful and talented people on this show, be it Ludwig Ogren was here at one point. Stans has been here. Ben Brode, the co-creator of Marvel Snap. Marcus Bromander, the co-creator of Among Us. Akilah Hughes was here talking about the writer strike a couple of weeks ago. You can find all of those things on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. Just search Visionaries. If you have to, you can put Visionaries Gaming. We come up close. You'll see us. We're the ones with all the live streaming icons and gaming icons. Pretty easy to find. There's a huge back library. I love when people find it and like start binging through it, because we take a lot of pride in creating this show. It's very important to us here at Overcome. So that's it for us. That's the only plug. Zach, Devin, thank you for being here. Thank you for educating people on these topics.
Thank you so much for having us. It's always an honor and a treat just to be able to speak to you, speak my thoughts, get called out on some stuff. I love it more than anything to be educated and learn. So it's an honor and a privilege to be here and a part of the community.
Jacob, thank you for putting this stuff on, man. Like, it's really important that we have these conversations in this space, and the fact that you do this and you've done it so consistently over so many years is really remarkable. So, like, thank you, man. And thank you, Zach, too, for being here, dude. It was really good to catch back up with you, man.
Good to catch up with you.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that's it for us. Find those other episodes. Follow the Overcome Twitter account. Follow me. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us on this afternoon. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for watching Visionaries on YouTube. For more content, please subscribe to the Overcome channel.